Sorry, Ira.
I had enough on the road trip.
Not every coach is going to want to sit two of their stars at the end of the second quarter. So what was the decision there to run with that group, and how did that group kind of change the energy of the game for you?
Yeah, and everybody understood. Look, basically what I told the guys at halftime is the guys that were grinding, through this trip, they had put it all out there, and we didn't have a day to gather ourselves. This was an unusual travel, deal, and we wanted to make sure we're not making any excuses. But that's what we have our bench for, to go in there and give us a spark, give us some life, and that's what they did. Drew and Alec, they've been chomping at the bit, and they've been preparing, and they're ready, and they gave us a great spark, along with, K-Love in the third quarter. But sometimes, you rely on your first unit and best players, to set the tone, and then sometimes you have to go into the rotation, and that was the beauty of tonight. Those guys really acknowledged it too. They weren't like, they're competitors, but they weren't like kicking chairs and saying, "Oh, I should be out there." They're like, "No, we need a lift right now," and that's what they got. And then in the third quarter, Tyler played really well. Bam was good, when we got really active with our defense. And they got the breather that it needed, and we were able to, carry that on to a win.
Speaking of fresh bodies, obviously Jimmy, pretty fresh coming in. How much of a boost? How much do you carry this forward? How much is this sort of what's the expectation going forward when Jimmy's healthy?
We know what the expectation is when he's healthy. And, we saw that in the first quarter. He really set the tone by imposing his physical will on the game, but also just his savviness, to be able to control the game in that second quarter. Those deep outlets for early post-ups, transitions, semi-break opportunities where he's able to take advantage of things, loose balls, 50-50 deals. All of it, he can just kind of control segments of games. And in that second quarter, that was a big-time example of that. But he also appreciates how deep this team is, where if he comes out, he knows that we have a lot of guys that can keep the momentum going, and he likes that. And I think our team is in a place that will get a better understanding of that and a better appreciation, as the season goes on.
I know injuries kind of forced it, but that starting five hadn't played much together in the last few years. What do you like about that group with Haywood and Duncan around those three?
Well, if you look at the core four, and then you add H, he's been with us since the post-COVID year. Those are our most experienced guys in our program, so they understand exactly what we're trying to get to. Even though we've made some adjustments, they know what our core tenets are. They've had the most experience, playing with various combinations with each other. That matters. This is such a transient league right now. That core probably has as much experience as anybody in the league outside of Boston.
Can you talk a little bit about that third quarter? I know it's been a talking point, but when you're facing a team that, they're 2-11, but they're better than their record, can you just kind of talk about the focus of how to face them?
I would say that we've talked about that ad nauseum. So the guys have taken that on as a competitive challenge. And we were able to do that tonight. And a large part of that was that second unit with K-Love, Alec, and Drew. Drew is really active, tonight. Again, I'm not even going to look at the box score, but he just does a lot of things that allow your better players be who they need to be. And defensively, he's a pest. He really is. So it's not necessarily about, his stats or his scoring. All that stuff is getting better, especially his shooting. But it's all the intangibles that every team in this league needs. and he provides a lot of those.
Coach, Jimmy had more free throw attempts than Philly as a team, and I was just curious what stood out to you about his aggressiveness in that regard, driving to the basket, and just overall how that changes the makeup of the team.
Yeah, when Jimmy feels good physically and fresh, he's going to get to the free throw line. He's going to create collisions. He's not flopping. He's putting his head down and he's creating some action. But he's also able to do it with the poise and savviness and experience to make the right play. He did that a bunch of times where he got in there and found open shooters. So we'll keep him as physically youthful, as we possibly can the rest of the year and utilize our depth to do that.
44 three-pointers tonight, but it wasn't a good first half despite how good the second half was. But is it getting easier to kind of just stick with taking those three-pointers even when there's a little bit of a cold spell?
Yeah, I think our guys understand that the symbiotic relationship matters. That opens, and we have way too many ignitable, game-changing three-point shooters not to take advantage of it. We really do. You even saw that with Alec in the second quarter, who hasn't played in a handful of games, and all of a sudden he can go on a run. Tyler can go on a run. Duncan can go on a run. All these guys can go on a run. K-Love. But it also is not just that. It's Jimmy getting to the rim, Bam creating actions, and different guys at different times getting into the paint. We need both, so it's not just one or the other.
You spoke about the experience level of the starting lineup, and specifically Tyler and Duncan. They played together for so long. What do you think is the difference right now, why they're playing so well with each other, and what do you like about those lineups and those actions that you have to run, and maybe those two in tandem?
I think at this point, they both understand how they can confuse defenses, and they're finding a sense of joy in that, and playing off each other. Two-man actions, three-man actions, the more things that are tough to guard. When you have that level of shooting skill and ability to put the ball on the floor and make the right plays, I think they've really embraced that. They've both grown, with their skill set, both grown with the ability to do it as a screener or with the ball handler or just moving, constantly. And it's having a clear mind to embrace that and have fun with it.
McKean's been really good lately, and he got going a little bit early on, and then you download some blitzes on him. You'll do that against a lot of ball handlers, but how much of that tonight was just kind of testing out of a guy that you haven't seen before and seeing how we can respond to pressure?
Well, you don't want to see him just line up open looks. I watched his edit, this morning. He's pretty impressive for a young guy, and we watched a ton of his stuff from college. He's right in that wheelhouse. He's an explosive shooter, and he plays with a motor, and you feel it, so he's trying to make things happen. We also wanted to kind of dictate the game instead of, reacting. It was more about that than necessarily just trying to game plan against him. All right, thank you.